We'll just take team. He can be pretty persistent. Oh, why is Marty?
Are you talking first?
I'm not ready to answer these questions. See how much those goes.
Strikes the balance.
No. It's funny to see Doug all crippled though. He's got some good perk 10s in his office. They told us how to get rated during the meeting.
Okay, we need to do
I bet you some people are here for the 2012-2013 calendar because they cut out all the half-days. What you do, fan?
Yeah, so there were only 6 there, but I mean, it's
Maybe before we're going to use it for
You don't need this, do you?
mine open.
he's getting ready to go back.
So we're ready to roll. Yeah, I need mine because I'm good.
Everything I thought is like just this guy warming up. Warming up in double back layout, or 1.5 back layout with 1.5 split. So he rolls, he just does a dive roll out back layout. Right. Yeah, just doing that. Oh, you still do it? But he also looks like. You still got how many?
6:30, so I'm going to call the meeting to order and verify that everyone received the meeting notice and adopt the agenda. So if we can rise and pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, number 3 on the agenda, comments from the audience. If anyone has any items that they would like to bring up for a future meeting, this would be the time to do that. Just a reminder that the first part of the meeting is a committee of the whole meeting where you can speak at different parts of the meeting. So as we're going through reports, if you have questions, you can ask questions then. So this would be the time now. If you had any items for future agendas, this would be the time for you to come up. All right, we'll move on to the report section. 4A, Chapter 220 contract and number of seats for the 2012-2013 school year. Tom, you want to do that?
Sure. In October, we started discussing the Chapter 220 contract. Because there was a glitch in the contracts, we did not receive them from MPS until a little bit later, so they gave us an extension on submitting our actual numbers. The chart that was included in the board package shows that we currently have 39 students attending the Whitnall School District under the Chapter 220 program, and the grade distribution was listed there so that you could see that we have 3 12th graders we anticipate graduating. We have 1 student who has moved out of the eligible transportation zone, and when that happens, as they move from either elementary to middle school or middle school to high school, they need to be relocated if they want to continue in the program because they will not provide that transportation. And then we had 3 students who were participating in the Chapter 220 program who actually moved in and became district residents. So what we're trying to do is get to the number that we had expected to have this year, which was 42. So if we have 35 continuing seats, we are recommending that we have 7 new seats for 7 new students to the district so that we would be at that 42 to maintain our current participation.
Any questions for Tom? Good point. So, Tom, are you recommending, so what are you recommending? You're recommending 3 seats at the first grade level?
I'm sorry, and it should be 4 seats at 3rd grade.
At 3rd grade, okay.
Yes.
And are those the grades where we're losing the students?
No. We are going to have 3 12th graders that will graduate hopefully this year.
Okay.
We have 1 8th grader who will be that displaced student looking for a student or a school district on the north side so that they could continue. But when we get to class size parameters and the next agenda item, these are the grades where it would look like our projections would show that we have available seats. It's almost the safest spot where we could add without increasing our staffing.
We have to add?
We do not. The process that we've been following over the last few years has been to maintain our participation rate in the 220 program. So this would maintain it at the level that we had anticipated for this year, which was 42 seats.
What's the net effect if we don't approve these and don't add any additional seats, just stay with what we have?
Chapter 220 is a benefit to the district because it lowers the tax levy to district residents. So if we decrease the number of students participating, you're going to see an increase in the local tax levy.
How much do we get per student for Chapter 220?
Now we're getting into...
What was the number this year?
It was a couple thousand more than the open enrollment, so it was like 9 something. I mean, it was a lot, substantially more than the open enrollment amount.
Could you possibly get those numbers, because it's just a discussion item tonight before we approve it?
No, this is up for approval tonight.
Yeah, it is. Then we need to know how much more. I mean, do we have the numbers?
I mean, we could leave, if we don't take the 220 and we roll it open enrollment, then they could stay with us through the entire transitional periods and not get displaced as time goes on. Then they become ours. Open enrollments theoretically stay with us through graduation.
Does that happen very often, Tom, where we get a displaced one, where he ends up on the
No,
north side?
we have only had probably 2 in the 7 years I've been here, where they've moved out of the transportation zone.
What would it take right now to get us some numbers as to what open enrollment versus 220 is? Can you have it before the end of the meeting?
I'm looking right now on the DPI webpage, so hopefully
We could talk about it when we get to the
Yep.
consent agenda and
Yeah.
come and discuss it then again. All right, then item 4B is class size parameters.
Annually at the December meeting, we talk a little bit about our class size parameters. This is a very beginning part of looking at the next year's budget cycle, so that we can do some preliminary look at staffing allocations and class sizes. The 2 attachments that you have in your board packet, the first one looks at our projected enrollment, and we utilize the same procedures that we have as far as calculations that we have in recent years. So when you look at the K-4 program, the K-5 program, first grade and second grade, there's a calculation involved there. So we're actually mathematically looking at what will our projected enrollment be at those grade levels. In the 6th grade, we add a static number because we do see a little bit of a bump from parochial students that live within the district that do choose to attend at the middle school level at the beginning of that. And then at 9th grade, we use a percentage of our current 8th grade moving on, because there again we see a percent jump from district residents who had attended a parochial school and choose to enroll in the high school for a public education for high school. The second chart that you see then just takes those projections and applies them to the anticipated number or the estimated number of staff members or sections at each grade level. When you look at the very beginning, we would have at Hales Corners there would be a net of 0 as far as change in staffing, and Edgerton would decrease by 1 classroom teacher.
And these are very early projections.
Yes, they are.
And we talk about this many times before we have to approve anything like this.
The important part comes, one of the important steps is next month in January you have to identify the number of open enrollment seats that you have available per grade level. When we get to that conversation, that's when you're going to be looking at the numbers and where you anticipate that you may have room to add some additional seats without increasing costs to the district as far as staffing goes.
Okay. Any questions for Tom on that?
Just one, Tom. You're projecting a decrease of almost 50 students. What do you base that on?
When you look at the senior class that would be graduating, currently that's 220 students. We'd be replacing it at this point with a projected class of 198. So we do have larger groups moving out. Last year at this time we were projecting a decrease of about 70 students or so. We actually increased our enrollment by 40, the head count by 40 students. So it's not a perfect thing. We did accept more open enrollment students this year, but we also had a number of students that had moved into the district that, you know, we really don't have any way of knowing that until they show up. Right. So this year our head count on Third Friday was 2,361.
Right.
As of the 5th of December, when I pulled these numbers, it was 2,355, a decrease of 6 students from third Friday to now. But this would be the projected number at this point. It does not include Chapter 220 or open enrollment seats.
Other questions? All right, 4C, Personnel Committee report. Just a couple things that I wanted to report to the board. We've been meeting several times in the last couple of months, and we've been talking with Tom and Doug and Lowell about the handbook that they've been working on with the teachers, bouncing off some ideas and giving them some suggestions on things. We're going to be looking at insurance, as insurance is always a big topic for everyone right now. The calendar is something also, and that's the next item on the agenda, so I won't talk about that right at the moment. But then the other thing that we are bringing to the board tonight is the business manager contract. We hired, as you remember, we hired Doug as an interim business manager to be here to the end of 2011. And he has agreed to stay for another year. And so we have the contract that we would like to have approved. It does reflect the 1.5% increase that we have given all of our other staff. And probably about midway through the year, we'll talk to Doug again about his intentions, if he wants to stay longer, if he likes us well enough to stay longer, or if he's done with us and wants to leave at the end of 2012. So we'll just kind of see how things go. And we do have that on the agenda later on during the business meeting to have that contract approved.
Nancy, I just have one question regarding the starting times. You had a discussion around possibly starting later. What was the rationale around that? Did we get feedback from the community that they wanted to have delayed start times or later start times?
Is this on the calendar question?
You're on calendar.
Calendar. We'll talk about that now.
Okay.
Calendar, D. 2012-13 calendar.
Okay. You're welcome for that transition.
Tom, you want to go through that in the process that you went through?
Sure. With the calendar, we have had the superintendent has established a district leadership team, so we've gathered information from all of our employee groups. We have representation from all the groups in addition and all the schools. We've discussed the different possibilities for the calendar. We use some of the parameters that we have to live within as far as the minimum number of student contact days, the number of instructional minutes that have to be provided at the different grade levels, the starting hours, not before September 1st, so we had some parameters to work around. Then we look at where holidays fall, different things like that. One of the things that has been talked about numerous times in the district as far as from administration and from teachers is the need for more time for collaboration. And one of the ways that many school districts have accomplished that is by having either an early release or a late start. And what the group that worked on the calendar was looking at was not only is it important for teachers within a school to have collaboration time, but across levels, so that there would be some time that could be captured so that you could have a vertical team that could span all the way from an elementary school to a high school, elementary, middle, high, whatever the configuration was, that you could have capture some time that could be available. And through the problem solving of what would be possible, the calendar that's put forward tonight actually has starting times that would be a little bit later. Main driving force of that was the 7:15 start for the high school was very early for teenagers to get up, motivated to be in class, listening, participating. And when you compare our start times to other high schools around us, ours was very early. So what we did was propose moving that back a half hour so that the high school's normal start time would be 7:45. What they'd like to maintain at the high school is a 0 hour so that the doors could still open at 7 o'clock so that you could have clubs, organizations, kinds of things meeting. You could also have guided study halls. You could have students reporting if their grades were not at a level that we thought was appropriate, that you could require them to attend and get support and help, because the teachers would still be here at 7 o'clock. Given that shift, that goes to the middle school needing to start a little bit later, so we moved that from 7:45 to 8 o'clock. Right now, we're still in conversations with the bus company to make sure that we would have the transportation needed. And then the elementary, which currently starts at 8:40, we were actually trying to move up to 8:30, so that our days would start a little bit closer together. So that would be their normal start times. On the late start dates, and that would be every Wednesday for elementary, they would start 1 hour later, so students would arrive at 9:30. At the middle and high school, it would be the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month that school is in session, that on those days the students would arrive 1 hour later. So at the high school, that would mean a start time of 8:45, at the middle school 9 o'clock. That collaboration time, as I said, has been talked about for many years, and this would be a way to get that built in so that you could have ongoing staff development and collaboration time between teachers within grade levels, within schools, and throughout the district.
Tom, if I could ask, what's the expectation then of the parents? On those late start days, yes, it's only twice a month, but considering how hard our parents work and have made arrangements for their children, that could be a considerable inconvenience.
At this point, we're looking at conversations with the Y, with the Park and Rec, and within the district as far as could we establish some programming available so that there would still be something here at the elementary schools. With the high schools, it would be a late arrival.
Okay. I guess my concern is that that's on a consent agenda for approval yet this evening, but we don't have answers to what could be a critical question.
Well, really, we're just approving the calendar. But that, yes, jump in.
All right. Just a little bit more of a background. Actually, since Tony's sitting here and he loves being put on the spot, could you maybe just review with everybody in the audience and at the board the stuff you told me, the groups you met with, how you came to the late start consensus, and then I can touch on the elementary and middle school a little bit with the conversations we had. So we'll start from the top and go down.
It was a conversation about collaboration a number of years ago, as Tom had indicated. And then through school, we were doing a brain-based research class, and it talked about adolescents and their ability to function at a high level in the morning. And basically the target times they talked about were that no less than an hour before they were actually awake would they be able to function at a high level. Anecdotally, our teacher said first hour is a little bit quieter than their other ones. So I first met with students. I meet with students once a month. We have breakfast together and talk about issues, and of course they were more than happy with the later start. First of all, but they were also excited at the fact that they would be able to meet with clubs and guided study halls and possibly a 0 hour. The reason being, right now in our current situation, if you ride a bus, you don't have access to those resources because the bus leaves approximately 7 minutes after the bell rings. So if you have a club or activity meeting during that no-fly zone from 2:18 to 3, if you take the bus, you wouldn't be able to engage in that activity. This allows us to do that. It also allows students to get help in the morning. As Tom had talked about, the structure in Pewaukee that they have is that they require a 0 hour. If, in fact, a student is not at a C or better, then they can earn their way out of that hour once they earn that. So we would have teachers on hand for that whole piece. So I took it from the students who were very happy about the 7:45 start. Went to the teacher leadership group in the building, the department chairs, as well as our staff development committee, and talked about how does this work for teachers? Does this make sense? They were wholeheartedly behind it. Obviously, the collaboration piece, as well as excited by the fact that it gets our students a little more alert. We no longer have a parent forum at the high school. We have a site council instead. So it's a group of parents, students, and teachers who all sit around the table and deal with high school issues. I brought it to that table and asked them to brainstorm about different start times, whether it was 8 o'clock or 7:30 or 7:15, presenting them with the same information, and the parent consensus as well as the students and teachers on that group also was that 7:45 would be a logical step, with the understanding that we would still be bringing those buses at 7 o'clock in the morning so that students who want to access the building can still access it. So worked with our food service group about what they could have available in the morning as well for students who may just want to arrive and get some studying done. Cafeteria would be open, food would be available, so students would be able to access the library or the cafeteria or our ASC for that zone in the morning as well. The idea of keeping it at 7:45 rather than 8 o'clock is it still gives a 15-minute cushion at the end of the day where students can get on the buses if they have extracurriculars and it doesn't bite into the school day. The last thing we want to do is dismiss students early from school so that they can get to an extracurricular activity. So running it through all of those groups and not hearing anyone who was saying that it was going to be an issue or anything like that, we put it forward. And there are some folks in the audience who are part of those discussions that could probably chime in if they want or not. But it made a lot of sense from a lot of different venues, and when we look at opportunities for kids, it's a great opportunity to offer them issues such as that.
Okay, then the elementary and Lori, Chris, myself, and the rest of the administrators around the table talked about the importance of still maintaining a consistent time for parents to drop their kids off. Lynn is interested in that as well, but we didn't get in as deep as we did with the elementary, because we wanted to make sure we had that covered before we move forward. And so right now, the only question mark at the elementary level is which group are we going to go with, those three options that Tom talked about, Park and Rec, the Y, or something within our own organization. And the middle school will be looking at all three of those as well. They're not quite as far along, but if it's a concern about being able to drop your kids off, especially with winter coming and stuff like that, it's not going to happen this year, it's for next year. But I'm sure we'll be able to come up with something where kids won't be either home alone or out in the cold waiting for the doors to unlock. That would be a bad thing.
Okay, and then I have to follow that up with, if there's other programs out there, whether they be the one or another group, is that going to be an additional charge to our parents to avail themselves of those services? And my next question to that is, with the exception of the parents that were part of the high school's, I'm sorry, what did you call it?
Site council.
Thank you. Site council, did anyone ask the other parents of the elementary and the middle school kids?
I don't remember if they brought anything like that to the table.
I don't know.
And that concerns me that we'd consider taking a step that would severely affect family schedules without consulting them.
This actually benefits families also, because the other issue that has been an ongoing consideration for this district since I've been on this board is half-days. This calendar gets rid of half-days, so the parents don't have to go searching for alternatives and objects to be able to supplement those half-days. What it does is it gives us a more consistent and a more educationally based parameter for which our teachers can use collaborative release times for horizontal and vertical integration. This calendar is not going to take effect until September of next year, so we got 9 months for our families to organize their existence and their ideas as to how they want to handle what's coming forward. But all the time I've been on the board, the number one complaint I got regarding our calendar was half-days. Planning for half-days, kids in half-days, what are we doing with our kids? Kids don't learn anything, it's just additional times. So we took the half-days out and we added the collaborative release times in the morning. Now, all the studies that I've presented and read over the last several years show that the more time we give our teachers to collaboratively release with each other, the better our programming is and our educational basis will become. So if we look at this calendar from that perspective, it may be a change, but it's a change for the better in the fact that we're going to have opportunities available for all of our students in the morning, like Tony said, a 0 hour. We're going to have available times for our students to meet with teachers and counselors, and we can do the same thing at the elementary schools. So there is a time frame that was modified. The other thing about this calendar that's different than the years past is 180 days is the state minimum. This is 181 days that our kids are going in front of our teachers. And the number of minutes they're going to be there corresponds. So it's a move in the right direction to keep our teachers in front of our kids for longer periods and to educate our kids with our teachers. So there might be some minute or some changes that are required, but I think we're giving enough notice, 9 months, almost 10 months, to modify. So that's, I think the work they've done on the calendar has been a lot of hard work and a lot of consensus among the groups. This wasn't just a few people getting together and looking at a calendar. I believe there was, how many people were involved in your end, Tony?
From just the high school or the district leadership team?
District leadership team,
Yeah.
the high school.
I think the high school, we ran it by probably about 40 or 50 people by the time we went all the way through between students, staff, and then parents. And then the district leadership team is 20 some members, I believe. So, is that right? Tom?
Yeah, about 25 people have been.
K-12.
So did the elementary teachers on the committee see any issues with this, or?
As far as the collaborative release, the elementary teachers are very much in favor of collaborative release. When you look across the district, the amount of prep time available or the amount of time that they can work with their colleagues at the elementary it's the most difficult to get that because there just is not scheduling options to make that available. So they're very supportive of the idea.
Did they comment anything about if it would be difficult for parents? Or
I think,
in their
there's a number of people who are on the district leadership team, even if you talk to in so many districts around us that families have learned how to do either late start or early release, that it is just kind of part of what school is. My elementary students are out early every Wednesday. That's how it's been from the time that they started school. It's how, since their brother's in college, it's been that way for a long time. When you look at other districts around, the one difference with this calendar is that it does offer us the opportunity to actually do some things K-12 because we went with the late start at all grade levels, where most of the time you'll see an early release at the elementary. So as far as what kinds of things, there's different things operating in districts around us. Utilizing Park and Rec or Y programs, offering parents opportunities to have their students still be at school. They aren't in class at that particular time, but there are different activities going on so that they're still in school and still supervised.
I know when we had talked about this a while ago, I think the idea was that we have, Spanish lessons or something for the kids during that time. Is that anything that's being considered again?
I think that depends on what we actually decide that we're going to offer and who would be offering it. If it's district staff, we would be looking at what kinds of things would they actually be able to do, or if it's, when you look at Y programs or our Park and Rec, they have ideas on what could that look like. Okay. And when we've had some discussions with the Y over even like intramural offerings and different things where they've offered to look at, whatever that interest or club past experience at the school has been, they would be willing to look at offering the same or similar or expanded versions of those programs. So that would, I think, still be part of that discussion.
Okay.
I do have to point out, because this computer program is very, very interesting, The 26th of September should have a line underneath it because it is the fourth Wednesday. It's a very stubborn, when you look at the screen, the line is there. When you print it out, it's not there. So that would be a late start. And then down underneath the note where it says late start Wednesday, the except November 21st should be crossed out because this is not the first version of this. And at one point, the day before Thanksgiving had a modified time.
Any other questions for Tom? Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, hi, John Jones, 6433 South 122nd Street, Franklin. I'm kind of curious, as a parent of elementary school student, this is the first we've heard of it. Evidently there were some high school, parents of high school students involved in this, but I'm kind of curious as to why this is the first that I'm aware of. Elementary school parents are hearing about it because it impacts us as well. I certainly appreciate this. We had this discussion last year about the 5 half days, or 10 half days I think we had, and I had asked why not, we had 10 half days, and I asked why not 5 full days, and Tom brought up the whole thing about contact days and contact minutes or whatever your terms were on that. So I understood that, but I appreciate you guys working on the half-day issue. That does, I think, at least that would help me out. But now you're looking at questions that exist, and yet you need to vote on it tonight. I don't understand it. There's a lot of questions yet. Who covers the cost for the Y or Hales Corners Rec or the district occupying the kids until 9:30? Does it come from the district? Does it come from the parents? Is it donated by the Y? They do have a kid care program there that starts at 7 a.m. Some of the kids that get dropped off at 7 a.m., now you're talking about elementary school students being occupied from 7 a.m. till 9:30 twice a month. That's 2.5 hours of, I don't know what, prior to actually starting the school day. So there's what to do with their time. There's where's the money come from, or what is the money. And I think it's a poor idea to say, well, we can pass this now and give parents 9 months to react, when maybe what we can do is ask parents now a little bit of a proact, if that makes any sense. So I know it's on the agenda to vote tonight. I mean, agendas should be somewhat dynamic. Thank you.
I just touch on what John said. He's got some pretty good points. The first one is, I don't have either one of the elementary principals here to answer if they had any discussion. So the actual late start part of the proposal, I think what's most important is we wanted to get the calendar out for parents to start planning for next year. The calendar is number one, the most important part. I don't know if they thought, right now the starting time is 8:40, correct, at the elementary school? 8:40,
I think, technically.
Okay, so they're shifting it 10 to 12 minutes back to 8:30, and I know they wanted to keep it consistent as far as drop-off times, but more information it's always better to have more information than less information. So my suggestion is that when we finally get to the consent agenda, that we talk about just the calendar as Tom presented it, and then as far as we can put it back on the agenda again for the January meeting and let people talk about it again in January and then vote on it in the second meeting in January. That'll still, give us enough time to get the buses taken care of and all that stuff. That's just a thought, but it's up to the board, of course.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Other questions or comments on the calendar?
Yes. Quick comment. I do love Eileen Velitis. I do love the high school later start time. Totally agree with the brain process. I live with one of those. Working great at night, dragging in the morning. The current 7:20 start time at the high school, I think is difficult for the high school student brain. So I do like that part of it, the changing the actual regular school day start time for the high school. And then the other late start part, I think you really do need to look at the elementary level. As a working elementary school parent, even with flexible time, a 9:30, get into my office by 10, it's going to be difficult for a lot of the elementary parents, and I think that part of it needs to be looked into it before voting on.
Hi, my name is Sandra Bass, and I'm an employee at the Whitnall Middle School. I'm also a parent of an elementary student and a middle school student. So concerning the calendar, and I guess the reason why some of us wanted to talk about it tonight was if you're going to vote on the calendar as is, it does show the later start time on the calendar. As an employee, I'm really excited about the idea of being able to meet collaboratively with our coworkers. I'm support staff, I'm an aide. So right now I have 100% student coverage. I do not get to participate in many of the staff meetings. And so this would be a really wonderful benefit as an employee. As a parent though, I'm a little bit concerned about if I have to be to work at 8, how I'm going to get my elementary school student to school. We do not live in a district, we are open enrollment. I live in Milwaukee. I don't know how I would be able to be at work in a meeting and still get my student to school on time. Some of the other concerns were where would all of these students meet during that first hour? That's a lot of kids in the building. Where are we going to put them? What kinds of activities are we going to allow for these students? What kind of liability will this have in the school by providing these activities on the premises? What does it do for busing if a parent doesn't want to send their student to school early and they're on the bus route? Are we going to have 2 separate buses? One to allow for people to send their kids at the regular time and one to send at the delayed start time? Also, what about the middle school and the high school? If they don't have programs for the student to attend, what are parents going to do with them if they have to be to work as well? If we do have programs there for them to attend, is there going to be an attendance? How are they going to make sure that their kids are actually there at that time? Personally, I think a better alternative would be early release. I think it would alleviate some of the busing concerns. We could still have clubs for kids after school, but I think it's easier for parents to set up play dates or have alternative arrangements for the kids if we have an early release as opposed to a delayed start. And just one thing that I thought of when I was listening to everyone talk was they talked about a 0 hour at the high school where students could show up at 7:45 and it would allow for clubs because they don't have to, there was an issue with the busing. My concern would be who's going to be supervising those students if the people who run the clubs are usually staff and the staff is supposed to be in a meeting. So who would be running these clubs? So these are just some things that I think that we should think about before we move forward with this, before we even approve the calendar with a delayed start time on it, or maybe just negate that and we could revisit it again in a month. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. The Finance Committee report. DJ?
Thank you. Actually, up to that, I'm going to have you start with the facilities part, okay? Then it'll tie it into what we did at the...
Okay.
Okay? Thanks.
I trust you all have read your packet, and I'll just kind of brush on some of the finer points that were contained in that letter. Starting on the northwest side of the site, we got most of the large storm water utility piping in. The large 60-inch pipe is in, and that's being surveyed right now. And a lot of the smaller stormwater piping on the north and west side is also going in. Moving over to the eastern part, northeastern part, we're also installing some of the storm sewer and sanitary mains for the team and concession building. The reason why The light poles are still out there is because we just want to get the ground hardened up enough to get cranes out there to pull the poles out. The 2 poles to the west are actually dead center, almost in the new football field, so those poles have to come out. We can't just cut them off and bury them. You know, they have to be pulled out completely. You also notice, if anybody's been down there, you're starting to see the foundations go in for the new team building and concession building. So it really gives you an idea of how everything's going to be situated on the site. It's really exciting for me to see how that whole thing's going to lay out real close to the school, and it's going to just give that whole back area a nice campus feeling with that extra building being back there. Moving around from the last meeting we had, we can see the new east parking lot that was put in, that was heavily utilized during the craft fair. The addition of those 50 stalls just made all the difference. We didn't have any cars blocking fire lanes anymore. There was no cars doubled up in the loading dock. It completely provided all the relief we needed for craft fair. And it also gave the crafters a lot of good room to park and put their trailers and things like that. So much needed space on the site, and a definite positive improvement. The baseball field, the grass went in a little late, but we will have grass obviously growing next spring. We'll just keep working on that and keep seeding it. It's a contractor's obligation to establish that, so there will be no additional cost for that going in late. And as you can tell, too, we finished paving over here along the south end, and the ponds are going in. The city has been approving permits and the vacation of the land to the west for us, so everything's been rolling along really good. We're going to be wrapping up shortly with all the site work, probably within the next month, I'd say, as long as we don't get a ton of snow out there. We're going to keep working, but they're just going to stabilize the soils out there, and if anything, start putting block up for the buildings. And that'll be the gist of the work over the winter. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I do, unless you guys go ahead first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. At our finance and facilities meeting, we talked, and we were about 2 weeks behind schedule because of weather conditions, fallish. Are we back closer on schedule now?
Yeah, I'd say we're right where we need to be. All the rough grading is done on the north side of the property. You can see the big mound of topsoil out there. That's just got to get pushed back once the site utilities are in. So I'd say we're in really good shape. We had an excellent fall. We were able to get a lot of work done. We did a lot of Saturday work, a lot of Sunday work. I would say we're on schedule.
Okay, and then the other question was, we had said then that the project costs, we were still on budget. We have contingency fees used as of date. Is that still true?
Yep, contingency is still right about where it was the last time we talked. It hasn't really changed much at all. Yep.
Wonderful. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. And Merry Christmas to all. This is the last meeting of the year, so thank you. It's been a good year.
Well, thanks, Matt. Merry Christmas to you too, buddy. We held a finance, you have copies of the minutes in the agenda or in your packets. Just to highlight a few things. One thing is we're going to create a standing FF&T meeting every third Monday of the month. Okay, that was the discussion we had last time. To keep it consistent, go through the process, get our updates from Matt, voice any concerns and issues we have at those meetings. So we're scheduled for next week, Monday. So if you guys have anything you want on that agenda, other than what we already have, please forward them to me and I'll gladly add them to the agenda. We spent a bulk of our time at the meeting working actually with Mr. Johnson. And over the course of at least my 7 years on the board and Bernie's 4 that we've been doing this, and is the format in which we receive information, financial information from the district to a board level, how we do our budgeting, how we do formatting of everything. Example would be one topic that was brought up was how we discussed and looked at how we forecasted going forward. On personnel is the greatest example of how we used to do it versus how we're actually doing it now. Doug has done a tremendous job of getting us back to a true number of here's what we are, here's where we're going, and here's what we should have. The concern that we had as a committee was, okay, how close and how accurate are we reporting, are we doing in relation to our budget? Because our budget is done on an annual basis, I don't want to wait a year, neither did the committee, want to wait a year to know how really close we're getting to what we really want and where we said we would be. So Doug came up with several alternatives, and he has some great ideas, and unfortunately our tree master over in the corner over there was out. He hurt himself pretty bad putting up his Christmas tree. So we're going to have the meeting on Monday, and then from there he's going to bring us a little bit more information. We gave him some direction as to what we would think we'd like to see. He's going to give us some more information on the next committee meeting, and then from there I'll have those reports sent out to the board. I don't believe it really requires board action to be able to get this reporting to you. It's just a different format compared to what we've been looking at in the past, but it's also giving us a more accurate picture on a timely basis of where we sit. These are the concerns that we've had for years. So we don't get into that budget scenario as like, well, how did that happen? Where did that come from? So we're trying to alleviate that. We talked about doing zero-based budgeting and truly doing zero-based budgeting. That was the bulk of our meeting. Then we just, if I missed anything so far, you guys? Then we discussed with Dr. Holtz and the whole costs associated with improving technology, infrastructure, and strategic planning process. And in that discussion and my subsequent conversations with technology people here in the district, we have a few glitches in our system, if we want to call that, when it comes to our technology and how we are able to get it, receive it, send it quicker, faster, more effectively. So in the conversation we've had, Dr. Holtz, as an example, sent me a copy of something that was sent to him, and his philosophy, and it really is what we should be doing, is he wants to present it. How'd you phrase it exactly? You want to phrase?
Not the technology driving the education, but what can we do to improve the educational opportunities for our kids, and then what technology supports that movement.
Okay. And so as an example is, like I said, how much bandwidth we have at every school and how our information is pushed from here, Edgerton, over to Hales Corners, and how much more, what would it cost to be able to get that, because we've heard over the years how Hales Corners was always so slow, and it's still slower than here, but it's a lot faster than it used to be. Well, it could be a lot faster, but there's a cost to doing that. So that's how the conversation came up with how do we want to approach this and what do we want to look at. So then it ties into Doug and Mr. Johnson when it comes to the budgeting process for next year. So Dr. Holtz is going to present something in February, and then we'll have an opportunity to present it to the committees, all the committees that would be involved, and come back to the board. That was one of the other topics. Is there anything else?
We talked about the creation of a fundraising subcommittee for to assist in defraying any potential cost overruns. Right now, we don't have any. We would need volunteers from the community for that. It would encompass not only going out and actually do fundraising, but also potentially naming rights, signage out on I-43. So it's going to be more than just, going around and asking for dollars. So it's going to be I would say, a potpourri of things that would go into that. So we would like to form that subcommittee. We always seem to go back to the well and get the same water from the group. I would like to see greater participation from a diverse group of community members to get involved and see what we can do. If anything, those funds that we could raise would help go to defray ongoing maintenance costs. We want to make sure we're going to have a state-of-the-art athletic field. We want to make sure it's maintained properly. And so, when you look at what the purpose of those funds would be used for, it would be more ongoing maintenance as opposed to, you know, we're in the enviable position that we will have no debt at the end of this project whatsoever. So, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be conscious of finding other revenue sources to make sure we, A, maintain that, and B, maintain the facilities that now are considered probably state-of-the-art. So, if anybody has interest in either being part of that subcommittee or even heading it, please notify TJ or myself, whoever, any member of the board, and we will start to put that together early first quarter of next year. So we really would like, I think we conceptually, when we finally dedicate that field, and this subcommittee would be an integral part of that, is to really to make it a real community event. And if you bring back some of the stars of yesterday, even possibly the future quarterback of the Wisconsin Badgers. So anyways, that's, I think
we also talked about a substantial donation from the future quarterback.
For naming professionals.
Yeah, once it becomes professional, I think there's going to be some naming rights.
And the other thing, and TJ touched upon it, you heard us use the word zero-based budgeting, and Doug's done a lot of work, and for many of you who work with budgets in your particular occupations, and I mean, kind of what you always want to do is say, where do we how are we looking compared to what we spent last year? How do we look year-to-date to what we budgeted? You know, what's the forecast? And that's the way everyone will get information on the board, as well as anybody who wants it, so that you know at all times, whether it be month to month or quarter to quarter. It'll probably start out quarter to quarter because we're playing catch up with this format. So everybody knows, you know, are we better off than we were the previous year? Does it look like we're going to have a surplus for whatever reason it may be? And so we identify those areas early on in the process that might need additional attention. And it's a new approach for the Whitnall School District to use that methodology, but it's the best methodology. It's the correct methodology to use when you're looking at what your budget is and how your expenditures relate to those budgets. So we'll get that, as long as we keep Doug off ladders trying to decorate Christmas trees, we'll get the year off. But, I didn't want to steal, just to supplement what TJ said, but I think all the committees are taking a much more active role in terms of meeting on a regular basis now. That's a very positive sign. So.
Steph, you want anything?
No, that pretty much covers it.
Yes.
Several months ago, we talked about the fundraising subcommittee, and at that time, I thought you had people that you were talking to that were interested in heading it. So what happened with that? And I know that there's people out in the community that thinking that we're kind of missing some opportunities by not having this created already.
This is true. Go ahead, Bern. I'll let you.
I'm not sure if we're missing opportunities. If you try to solicit companies right now, at the end of the year, you're going to have a very difficult time raising money. This has been a difficult time for many companies. And before you just go out and just say, I want to do fundraising, you've got to have a strategy in place as to what that encompasses. So, you know, we're really looking for somebody to kind of lead that group. We've had people come up and said, I'm willing to serve, and that's great, you know. We haven't had anybody really come up and say, I really would like to take this bull by the horn and lead this, and understand the time commitment that takes. And so this is the first time we've really expressed that, but if you know people that want to do it, it's a big job. Anybody's interested, it's not going to be easy. Because it's more than just, people think it's, you know, just going to go out and call on, you know, Sherpers for some more, you know, kayaks and, you know, life preservers for auction. It's more than that, so.
Well, and that was my concern when we talked about the fundraising committee a while ago, that we don't keep going back to the same people in our community.
Right.
But, I mean, we need to get that in place so that they can come up with a strategy. We could do naming rights to the field, to the, you know, different fields.
Signage, there's a lot of them, yep.
The scoreboard, other schools have gotten their scoreboards donated.
Sounds like you're willing to lead that effort.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a yes.
Be careful of what path you're going down.
I think there's many more qualified people, some possibly in the audience even, that would be,
I think
would
they
be
get
really
the
good
point.
to have that. But, scoreboards, I know that someone had told me that, I think it was Pepsi had donated a scoreboard for one of the schools, and they, did a contract with them. I know we've been working with the other cola company, so I don't know where that's at, but.
See, that's the problem. It's fragmented. We need someone to organize that. We need somebody at the top to organize that.
Somebody who's, not working full-time.
Somebody recently retired, maybe?
Preferably just won the lottery, maybe.
That, also the Greenfield, the new Greenfield Community Center, they are working with Comcast for their sign, and
That's
so
just one, you've
so
got
one other
Lamar,
item,
you've
so
got
you've got-
others, so
right,
you got to play
exactly.
one against the other.
So, a lot of
Yeah.
ideas out there, but, the sooner we get started, the better, because, as you said, we need to get a strategy, and then we need to start executing that strategy, because the fields are going to be ready, when? When's the projection?
2012.
Oh, so we don't have a lot of time. We have time, but we
have
have a lot of time.
Yes, it's on the agenda for the next finance facilities meeting to have a discussion regarding this, yes.
Okay. Other comments from the audience? Mrs. Stavi, could you come up to the microphone, please?
I think she's coming up to volunteer.
Okay, I'm Barb Stavi. I don't know if my address, but I think we're also thinking of the community, like naming rights for the benches, different families. So that kind of thing we could be out there soliciting and at least getting some enthusiasm built. We were kind of hoping when we had the 50th. Yeah, the block party, and we had the display out there to be able to sell, or at least, talk about bricks or, whatever. I don't know that, So I think that's what we're interested in, at least getting the ball rolling. So.
I think these are all great ideas, Mark,
Go ahead.
Marty Ordnance, one of those unemployed retirees. Just a question, I guess, on process. Is there a way, we don't want to dig into the same well all the time. Is there a way to get the word out to all the other talented parents that are in this district that we need help on this? Is there a way that the board can communicate that in some way through a email, or I don't know what the process is, but in order to solicit good parents, we need to get the word out there. So that would be a place to start, and how we might do that, because there's probably people out there that know about fundraising and that process, and we might have very good resources, I'm sure, sitting right out there right now to look at. So,
No, I think
just a
that's
thought.
Great suggestion, Marty. Put something on the website immediately. Looking for volunteers, forming a subcommittee.
Also, I know Rick Ellertson wants to try to consolidate fundraising for the athletic department, and we should probably work with him so we're not, tapping into the same people, and because I believe that's his goal, not to have each the football, basketball, all fundraising. He wants to do, under one big umbrella, so coordinate it with him as well.
Yeah, that was one of my conversations that was going to happen. I did have a conversation with Rick regarding the same topic, because we keep talking about not going to the same well and putting up the same pail of water. He's facing that at every organization he's dealing with, and then if you take that and you broaden that to the middle school, they're going to the same wells. Go to elementary, you're going to the same wells. So the conversation was also part of what we had talked about was making this even broader, and premise was under the new athletic field, the new water management process, but to take it even bigger than that, if we could, so we have a district-wide fundraising that supplements all of our outside curriculars that we're currently fundraising individually for, and see if we come up with a master program that everybody can share and get behind and rally in and be part of, because we have the band boosters that do one, we got the sports boosters do another one, we are all doing the same thing. So that's why when Bernie's saying that, we're talking about getting a few people that take that whole pyramid and bring it all together, not just focusing on one aspect of our organization.
Hi, I'm Julie Job, and this is regarding the conversation. We had some opportunity last summer to have had a company in Hales Corners that was very interested in giving Whitnall, or putting it on their agenda through their trustees. I gave the packet to school this summer, gave it to the athletic director who's no longer here. And I feel we lost a very large opportunity. I was at a function recently and the person asked me, our trustees never got the application, and it had to be in for August. But I think one of the biggest things when you go to Muskego High School, you go to Greenfield High School, you see corporations that are on their football field, that are on their scoreboards, things like that. I don't know if we've lost the opportunity because we already are developing and have a plan. But I really think there's an opportunity I can think of a Greenfield and Hales Corners company who, thought it was a great opportunity for their name to be at the Whitnall High School because their family went here, they went there, and I'm not sure if it's still, and not for maintenance, but I'm talking to have their name somewhere in print.
And it's not too late for that. We could certainly do that, yes.
Yeah.
So if you have those names, if you want to share it with us, that would
So I figured when Marty signs up to run the
Marty, that's the problem when you do such a good job on the one subcommittee that you get kind of roped in. I would like to get the names of those companies if you would, because I'll be glad to send them a letter. And I do have a few family names that I've stayed in touch with, and they've said when you're ready. So I don't think it's ever too late. And if either Matt or I left you with the impression that the signage has already been predetermined, there's no room. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that's the case.
No, we're still in the process of that.
Yeah, so I would hope that we would have stakeholders, in place for those types of things. But we have, if you've ever, you can call it DOT, and the highway count on I-43, and now that if you've gone, I'm sure, driven on I-43, and you see all the construction, and remember it used to be kind of blocked, and now it's wide open from I-43. You can imagine having a Lamar or a Comcast, multi-dimensional sign on that location is going to be pretty attractive. So we'll play one against it. But that's really the work of the subcommittee. So you got somebody that maybe wants to deal with that. Then you got somebody else that wants to deal with naming rights, and then you've got another. So you really see this subcommittee as having various components and people under each one. So that's why I think it's a bigger task than a lot of people realize.
Marty's getting tapped on
Marty,
the shoulder.
I think you have a phone call.
Yeah.
Go right ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, I'm just busy today. Okay, I think it's great. I think there's a lot of opportunity with the new athletic fields, and I think you can reach beyond the regular Hales Corners community, who's always really gracious about donating things for raffles and this and that for other projects that go along. Great opportunity, shouldn't be missed, needs to be followed up on with a committee. What I do have a concern with that was mentioned was a lot of the success behind individual fundraising, say at the elementary school level for a PTO or a band booster club or whatever. The idea of doing a big umbrella concerns me because I think what you really do is you generate the enthusiasm for the group that is directly involved and is going to reap the benefits of their work. So, you know, if I have a student that's in band, you know, I'm going to work and I'm going to pull my contacts to benefit my group. I'm probably not, I don't know if I'd have the same incentive if I'm taking and having to share with other people. So the athletic field, the naming rights and all that, I think is a great idea. Going into that one big umbrella fundraising and then dividing up among all clubs. I don't know if that would work, because I think people are more self-motivated to benefit who they're directly involved with, and that's just the thought I have. And I've done a lot of fundraising with a lot of different groups within the school district.
I would agree with that. I think you need to really bifurcate a lot of that, because each one may have their own unique way of doing that, and putting our umbrella under one umbrella, I'd caution if that's an approach we're taking.
And as a whole, I think that aspect has been working. And if it didn't work for a group, it's maybe because they didn't put the effort into it.
Well, maybe it just needs to be more of a coordinated effort than having it under one umbrella.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? All right, and we'll move on to letter G, Policy Committee report. Suzette?
Okay. All right, the Policy Committee has met twice in the last couple of weeks. The first policy we looked at was student harassment, and we had Ms. Stadler, Mr. Borden, and Mr. Vogel come in and educate the committee and the people who attended on the current student harassment policy, which is bullying, basically, and the state statutes and the limitations. And we talked mostly about the middle school and the high school, and Mr. Vogel is working on revising the policy, and a first draft will be to the board probably in January, right, Mr. Vogel?
Sure.
And then at the last meeting, we talked about the email archive and access policy and procedures, which were actually first drafted by Eric Gran, who is our Educational Technology Director, and Bill Ostendorf and Eric are working together to tighten those and to get those ready to go in front of the board. Other policies that we're looking at reviewing are the district goal setting, standing board committees, administrative organizational chart, disposal of surplus property. And first draft of these will probably be presented to the board, or will be presented to the board in the first couple of months of the new year. And that's that.
Okay. Questions for Suzette? Okay, letter H, board facilitator discussion report. Bernie, I'll let you take that.
Sure, thank you. We've been having ongoing discussions as a board about having a, well, we described it as an off-site, but a public off-site, I guess is the best way to describe it, and having a facilitator assist us in that. I'm going to recommend to the board that we delay the contracting of a facilitator until we have the elections completed in the spring, but that we do conduct a board retreat in public format or access, place to be determined sometime in January. I'd like to get us maybe some dates, try to look at the calendar now if we want to do that. Because I think there's some work we can do as a board ourselves, and I think under the guidance of maybe Nancy and myself, let's put a stake in the ground on some guiding principles that the board should discuss and try to live by before we engage a facilitator. I think we need a starting point, and I think any facilitator, and the ones that I've had discussions with, I have both said that. I have identified two that we could utilize. I'll be glad to give you bios on each one. One has a stronger educational background and has had experience in this. The other one actually is a treasurer of a municipality and currently president of the Clerks Treasurers Association of the State of Wisconsin. So They're both, I think, very qualified individuals. But before we go out and spend some money, I think we as a board need to just sit down and vent some things and make sure that we don't spend facilitator time unproductively. So that's my recommendation. I think we need to look at the dates and have that done in January, no later than the middle of February.
Why don't we get together and find some dates that'll work for us, and then Joan can send out an email to everybody else to see what dates will work for the rest of the board. We've got 2 members missing tonight, so so we'll do that, and then we'll get something scheduled for January.
Okay.
Right, thank you. And our last item on the reports is the WASB convention information. This was included in your packet. Mike Colorzio was voted as our representative. Mike was unable to be here tonight. Anything else, Joan, we need to talk about?
No, but I think if you want to go, the early bird registration ends December 15th.
Okay.
I guess if anybody wants to go, they could let me know.
I was at the convention 2 years ago and found it to be very interesting for the sessions that I went to. So if you have time that you can take out of your day for parts of it at least, I would encourage you to attend. And that leads us to number 5 on the agenda, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second. Thank you. So we are adjourned from the committee of, everyone.
Sorry, just technically.
Technical. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So that adjourns us from the committee of the whole meeting, and we either need to take a break, or can we move right into the business meeting?
Sure. Oh, no. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right, then I will call to order the business meeting for the board, verify that everyone received the meeting notice, and adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Comments from the audience regarding items for future consideration? Some people left in the audience. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda, number 3, consent agenda. A, approval November 21, 2011 school board minutes. B, approval of December vouchers and vouchers payable. C, approval of 220 contract. D, approval of the 2012-13 calendar. E, approval of business manager contract. And F, approval of high school curriculum. Does anyone want to remove an item on the consent agenda? D.
D and E.
All right, anyone else?
Motion to approve.
Is there a motion to approve A, B, C, and F?
Yep.
TJ?
Second.
First. Bernie, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Sorry. I'm still counting letters over here.
Okay, Stephanie, D.
How would we need to state the motion to only approve the dates of the calendar, but not necessarily the times and the early releases until we have some of those questions answered?
The motion would be to approve the calendar with the exception of, to approve the calendar as printed in here with the exception of the early release and, no, it's not, late start and
adjusted start times?
The different start times. So at least we'll get the calendar done, and then we'll bring it back in January for more, elementary school presentations and get parents involved and all that.
What if you have to add a half day?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Pardon. Pardon. Nancy, it's business. And there's got to be a motion on the floor first before we can discuss.
Right.
So who's putting a motion forward?
I will. I would put a motion forward to adopt the 2012-2013 calendar as printed with the exception of approval of the start times and the late start on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month.
Okay, we need a second.
Need a second.
I'll second that.
Now we can have discussion.
Okay.
Is it, to me, we can say anything
No,
or not?
you, sorry.
Not that we don't want to, we've heard everything, that's why we give the opportunity. Now it's just going.
I'm not sure you can separate the two. Can you really segregate them?
That's,
This is a, I'm sorry.
I'll
get it from you.
He has a Robert's Rules of Order question, I believe, John. Do you not?
Yeah.
Is it appropriate, one's it not?
I guess, I don't know.
Is it appropriate to ask questions? or-
Yeah, I guess it is a Roberts, I don't know if it's a Roberts Rules of Order question or not.
The first part of the meeting was the committee of the whole meeting where we could have conversations back and forth. The second part of the meeting is a business meeting, and there's no conversations with the audience.
Okay.
So.
Good luck.
Okay, so the question was, can we separate them?
Yeah, are they segregatable? That's a.
I think they are segregatable because what all we would be approving is when school starts in September, when it ends in June, and then what the days off would be for the kids and the teachers.
But then, if we don't have collaborative release times built in, as what Stephanie's motion excludes, then that could potentially change
Right.
the days, the start, and the finishes. So they're not severable, in my opinion.
And they're really not, because all those late starts would add up to a day or whatever.
Correct.
So, yeah,
So they're not severable.
really can't vote on it.
Just philosophically, you guys can't discuss things, but I wonder if it would bother parents to wait on the whole thing another month.
Well, see, that's,
I think that's, yeah.
well, and this is the point.
I think we'll have to.
But it affects more than just the parents. It affects,
Right, absolutely.
it affects the program, it affects the staffing, it affects everything. It's why it's one of the first things that we do in our budgetary process, if you will, that everything kind of rolls forward from this point till next September when we take our annual vote. But this is the process in which we do. So the comment about what you had said before, yes, they're not, I don't see how they're severable. But, and I'm going to go back to what I said before, there was a lot of discussion at the administrative level, at the teacher level, at the forum levels, to get us to this point.
Well, at the high school forum.
No, it was at, I believe, Lowell, if I'm wrong, it didn't happen at the elementary?
I can't vouch for what,
Okay.
my only discussion was with what we would do for the late starts for the parents so that we keep the cost down. That was our focus. I was thinking just as a parent rather than as an administrator.
Let me ask you this, have the principals been involved at the elementary looking at this calendar?
Oh, absolutely. They're all part of that leadership team. They're all part of, I mean, we all looked at it. Tom's done a great job of coordinating everything and getting the input from everybody. So I'm not worried about the process. I think we have a good product. If we left someone behind in the information stage and give them the opportunity to at least have their concerns addressed, that was a oversight on my part, and let's take care of it.
I will direct my next question to Doug and to Tom. If we table this calendar to the January meeting, first January meeting, or in this case, it would have to be the second January meeting,
Right.
because that's when we would vote on it. Is that going to affect anything in your process rolling forward?
Nothing I can think of.
Then I'm going to refer over to Tony. Is this calendar waiting till January, the end of January, going to affect anything in your process? Then I would suggest, Stephanie, that you take
Well,
this.
we either vote on the motion.
yeah, we either vote on-
and then
yeah,
you
right.
can-
Either-
then we can have another motion.
Right.
So-
I would have your motion,
Yeah.
remove your motion from the table, and we'll just table this till the end of January.
I will withdraw.
You need your second to agree with you.
I'll second.
Did you second her first motion? No, Nancy did.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Now we need a motion to table this item.
You don't need a
Joe.
motion to table, you can just table. You know, you just, Robert's rule doesn't say you have to have a motion to table, it's just a tabled item now.
I don't think it is. I think we need a motion to table it. Joan?
We've always done a motion to table,
Yep.
and then a motion to take it off the table.
Okay, then go for it.
So, you wanna make the
Before we
motion?
table it, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I know I was on the personnel committee, but I didn't ask this question. Mr. Vogel, when you first proposed, as far as the later start times, the elementary school is only 10 minutes off, but going over to the late start, the actual late starts versus an early release, did you look at early release at all, or did you just go with the late start time?
We looked at all variations.
And what made you choose the late start versus an early release?
Part of that was getting a late start for students, especially at the high school level, gets them more alert, the students more alert, more prepared to learn. It also is a time where staff members are more productive. Instead of having a full day of teaching and then moving into a collaboration time where we're trying to get them to think about how are they going to do things differently, that having that staff development time at the beginning of the day is more productive for the staff members as well. The idea of having a common, meaning that all of our schools would be one or the other, we saw as valuable because it would give us that opportunity to do things across grade level, across schools, so that you could do some things with elementary, middle school, or middle school, high school. So when we originally, I mean, we went through early release at the elementary, late start at the high school, so we had all kinds of variations. We landed on the late start because we thought that would be, not only better for students to learn starting at a later time, but also more productive for staff members to do that collaboration piece at the beginning of the day.
So let me ask you this then. I guess I didn't realize this when we talked about it in committee. So the buses, though, are going to stay at the old times? Is that what I heard?
For the high school only.
For the high school only. So so on a day that my elementary, no, I don't have one, but if I did, they would take a bus then an hour later.
Correct.
Okay. So the buses aren't taking them at it used to be 5 to 8 or something, and then they didn't start school till 9:30. That would be an awfully long time to entertain elementary
No,
kids.
the buses would run at the normal time for the middle school and the elementary school. The high school is where we're looking at moving the 0-hour guided study hall, organizational kinds of meetings, because then if the buses arrive at 7 o'clock, any student who rode the bus would have that opportunity to participate in those kinds of things. Where Mr. Brzezowski said, right now, if a student takes a bus, if that's their transportation, school dismisses at 2:18, most of the clubs and things have their meetings that start at 3 o'clock. The buses leave at about 2:25. So they do not have that option too, unless they arrange alternative transportation.
So the 0 hour goes in the beginning of the day? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I think at the high school level, in the middle school level, I think that's awesome. Okay, I understand it better now. Thank you very much.
So if the buses come, I'm sorry, so if the buses come an hour later for the elementary school, then having programming starting in the beginning of the day, then what good does that do if the kids aren't
If the
there?
parents are, if they do not have the ability to leave their children home alone, and they would like them to be at school, they could get them to school, and then we would have programming available so that they would be supervised.
I think we need to spend some time looking at it, almost like an impact study on the elementary schools, because that's where the issues are. I think it's much easier to implement flexible hours at the high school because transportation is not as much of an issue. It's definitely impactful on elementary students and parents, and we need to spend more time studying that.
The only thing I would say to that, Bernie, is yes, but then we need to also make sure that we include, because the whole premise behind this calendar change was to make it a shift dynamic for the entire district for everything Tom had just mentioned. For collaborative release, not just horizontally, but vertically, for activities, consistency, all of it, and that's fine. We can defer this until the end of January, because obviously the people that are going to be affected by this won't, administrative that's going to be affected by processes going forward are not going to be in any hurry until the end of January, so I'm okay with that. But the whole idea was that it was a district-wide philosophy in getting all the stuff that, because it ties right into our philosophy moving forward, that it's a K-12 school district and we're tying everything together. And that's why this calendar came to what it was, so.
Well, let's bring this back for discussion in January, and then in the meantime, maybe Chris and Lori can start having conversations with the parents and figuring out how we can make this work. And Tom, you'll have more information from the bus company by that time, right? And maybe some other information from the Park and Rec or Y or whoever.
Motion to table to January. Second meeting.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And Bernie?
I have a point of order. We were, we approved the 220 contract, and we were going to wait for some additional information.
I saw that too.
You know, we're all now going to go to Robert's Rules of Order hell for that or something, but.
Did you find the answers?
Did you? Yes. Did we find any response to that?
We believe that over the last 2 years, it was about $9,800, $9,900 per student.
Okay.
So that it's a year behind. So you're looking at financial information. You're looking at student counts that happen in 1 year, financial impact in the next year. But what we could get off of DPI's website, it looks like this year our inter-district transfer aid was $505,653. And with the count that was from the year before, that equates to $9,915.
There's no talk politically at the state to change 220?
At this point, the lobbyist that works with the program has said that it is not on anyone's radar, so it appears to be safe for at least the next year and a half.
Thank you.
So we're asking me is an amount level, therefore to maintaining 7 new seats would need to be offered. Why are we locking ourselves into only 7? I mean, at roughly $10,000 a student. This is a revenue source for us. Why couldn't we say not less than 7, or more than X if we wanted to? But I mean, here we're saying we're not going to have any more than 7.
We have to identify the number. We have to identify the exact number and the grade level that they're available at.
Okay.
Okay. Now you want to talk about the one that you pulled?
Sure.
E?
Yeah. Now that we've already approved the 220 that I didn't.
Yes.
I only had one question. Is this a W-2 or a 1099?
W-2.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Motion to approve contract as presented.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone? No.
Welcome aboard officially.
Thank you.
For another year, Doug.
Yeah. Tom says he'd slap me on the back, but we don't.
Glad there wasn't any psychological counseling benefit.
All right, number 4, new business. I don't think we have any. 5, comments from the school board regarding agenda items for future consideration.
Actually, I think, Suzette, you touched upon it. I missed the date. You said the bullying policy is being reviewed and it's going to come back for
Yeah,
discussion
well,
in January?
The policy committee, Tom is working on it right now, then the policy committee will look at it, and then we get a first draft, and then we get a second draft.
Okay.
Then we vote, we finalize it on the second one.
Okay.
Okay, number 6, board member announcements.
I have one.
Yes.
You want to do it? You want me to do it? First of all, it's Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to the entire school district. A few of us are, and the members of the audience, a few of us are going over to Finn McGinn's for a holiday soda for a holiday get-together. And anybody is always welcome to join us. So that's where several of us might be. So if you're going to join us, you're more than welcome to. Okay?
That means he's buying.
I did not say that.
Everybody in the community.
Yeah, the whole district.
Anybody in the community, I don't care. Anybody who wants to come is more welcome to come join us.
Everybody will get on the phone.
So yes, the board would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, safe and healthy New Year. And with that,
motion to
a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn. And a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. See you in 2012.